So bring your own device is a huge trend across the world now. So one-to-one computing is very, very established, but also the idea of students and teachers bringing in their own devices into school and those being used for learning and teaching. Now in theory this sounds fantastic. All of technology and people's own personal technologies are being brought into a school. There are a number of practical issues with this. So first of all, technically, it's a really complicated thing for schools to actually operate. Just in terms of the bandwidth, just in terms of getting the devices to operate, even simple things like making sure all the devices are charged and have enough power for the day is a real struggle for schools. So it has a huge strain on the infrastructure and the technical aspects of actually keeping the technologies working. But also in terms of pedagogy, if devices are being brought into the class, they don't necessarily fit with the very rigid routine ways that classrooms still operate. And so our own research, we're finding teachers really struggling to maintain a set lesson plan that follows certain basic parameters, even if it's as simple as students spending a reasonable amount of time on a task and everybody completing or everybody starting and finishing in the same place. And so there's a real tension between individualising students' activities and still having some idea of the class learning the same thing. I think that's a really kind of key issue. And another tension is the way that students' devices are being regulated by schools and by teachers. And so what we found, unfortunately, is that although bring your own device sounds like an invitation, bring in your own device and we can use it, it's very much an instruction, bring your own device. And we'll tell you how to use it and we'll tell you when and when not to use it. And it's making probably achieving a better balance between allowing a bit of freedom for students to do things with their own devices that might be a little bit off task, but still related to learning. So I think it's a great idea. I think it's definitely the way that technologies will be used in schools in the next 10 years. It has to be. But I don't think we should be naive in thinking that it's a magic solution. It actually probably creates or changes problems as well as creating some new ones. So I think there's a number of practical strategies that educational institutions and educators can have in mind when they're implementing learning analytics. And one of the really interesting points that's come out of the two-day conference that we've just held is the idea that learning analytics is something that has to be done with students and teachers rather than done to students and teachers. So the idea of getting students and teachers involved in learning analytics, maybe making it a site that's more democratic or open to people actually having a say in how analytics are used, discussing and maybe getting other people's views and opinions on what indicators and what data could be used in analytics, having discussions about alternative measures and alternative indicators that could be used, and making analytics a kind of a catalyst for discussions about teaching and learning. So, and also getting away from this mindset of seeing analytics as the solution and the way that things should be done, and making sure that everyone's aware that analytics are most powerful when they're used as just the starting point of a conversation. So we've talked a lot about how analytics are just part of how teachers and educators can make sense of what's going on in classrooms. They're just a help rather than a complete guide. So analytics, I think, are a really important part of education, but they need to be used appropriately. And just because we can use it doesn't mean to say we should use it, so use appropriately.